Rarely wrong, always right. Sam Mirejovsky here, News Talk 840 KXNT. The What's Right show is on. By the way, just as we begin the program here at 1 o'clock on Thursday afternoon in Las Vegas, not too far from here, Bernie Sanders and AOC are holding a rally, a Stop the Oligarchy rally. This is at a park in North Las Vegas, really actually not that far from my office downtown Vegas. Well, I don't know. I think the good news is that for about 2 hours, the Tesla vehicles of Las Vegas are marked safe, right? They got a little reprieve as all of the domestic terrorists are flooding the park to cheer on Bernie and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Now, I'll tell you, first off, again, everything I said yesterday about this holds. We're still in the same, right? We're still in the same paradigm. Remember I said how libs don't have actual beliefs, that they just have hatreds and resentments. They won't be able to articulate what they are for because they're holding a rally about what they're against. This is exactly it. Stop the oligarchy. Okay, what's the oligarchy? Well, the rich people with political influence? My goodness. I mean, the Soros father and son are like, the ghosts of Christmas past and future of the Democratic Party. Every single event that I saw during the 2024 political race, presidential race, political season, the Democrats, everything that they did, they had the wealthiest of the wealthy people in their corporations. Remember the Democrat convention? Rife with large corporate sponsors, billionaires running amok. It's just all of it a complete nonsense. The oligarchy that the Democratic Party doesn't like is obviously Elon Musk coming in and trimming the excessive fat from our government, fat that has been, of course, very helpful for Democrats and even some Republicans inside the government. So all of this is just hilarious. Robbie, you're keeping an eye on it. It's happening as we do the show. So, if there's something good, of course, I'll fill you in. And no doubt we can talk a little bit about it tomorrow. Nonetheless, here we go, right? I saw as somebody absolutely, again, this on the Tesla subject, some liberal somewhere being ecstatic that it is only a matter of time before Tesla owners get hit with, either very expensive insurance renewals or cancellations. I mean, this is how hateful these people are. Think about this. They are excited that all of this vandalism that is being done to Teslas is going to result in a glut on the secondary market, that people out there will not be able to afford their Tesla insurance because of all the excessive risk of damage happening to these vehicles, and that in turn insurance companies will, drop coverage, forcing Tesla owners to sell their cars. This is how they're thinking. And by the way, I know that this is a thing. There is, I think there's Tesla does some of its own insurance, and they started, Elon Musk got ahead of this because the insurance question was going to be complicated given that Tesla is the first, self-driving car or car that has some self-driving technology to hit the market. And so Tesla, this is again where it helps to be brilliant, helps to be somebody like Elon Musk, actually already has begun building its own insurance system. And as I understand it, I think the solution, what Elon Musk is going to do for his car owners is provide, I predict that this could happen. I don't think it has yet, but Tesla could come out and simply say, look, we're gonna insure you for any intentional acts, any sort of vandalism or other types of damage to your Tesla. We're just going to insure you ourselves directly, separate from any insurance that you might have through your insurance company. And that, of course, would then keep insurance companies in the game. These are the kind of things Musk is going to be forced to do in reaction to this very organized, targeted effort to get people to dump their Teslas, to hurt Elon Musk, and to dissuade him from volunteering his time to make America better. When you really stop to think about it, it is outrageous. And that's where we are. No actual beliefs. This isn't about the environment. This isn't about improving society. This isn't about the positions held a mere few years ago by many, many people on the left that basically Elon Musk was a savior of humanity. As soon as he became a threat to their political power, long-held positions turn on a dime. They reverse overnight. Because it is never about the positions. It is never about any kind of beliefs. It isn't about philosophy. It isn't about anything other than pure political power. So that's, what to be aware of. By the way, gas prices are dropping rapidly. This on top of course, some basic staples like eggs going down. So the inflationary pressure appears to be easing, which is a fascinating thing. Again, the economy is going to heal. And I remind you yesterday, we have some more color on this. The Tesla isn't obviously Musk's only company. And one of the other companies that first began to draw significant criticism from the left was Musk's, takeover of X, of Twitter. And when Musk took over X, remember the valuation was 40-something billion dollars. That's what he paid for it. It then dropped down to 10 billion because of targeted, systematic boycotts, political pressure by advertisers, loss of revenue, etc. And they tried to bankrupt, Elon Musk then, but they didn't succeed. And this is very important because, I mentioned yesterday that there was a new valuation for Twitter, and it's back up to that 44 billion mark, and it's going to go up from there. And it's because, Elon Musk knows how to take things, tinker with them, and make them better, and then improve on it. And he has also proven that he can withstand an enormous amount of pressure. I played some clips from him yesterday about this, and it's very important for me to lay this down because nothing that Bernie Sanders says or does in North Las Vegas, Nevada, is going to matter one iota to the Doge train proceeding forward. And I have gotten a number of emails recently from many of you who are worried about how this is all going to progress and are actually concerned that things might not get done. Folks, I have to tell you, I am so optimistic right now. I feel better about it than I ever. My fear, if I had one, going into this second Trump presidency, would be that it was, my worry was that it would be the same as the first, where there were missed opportunities, there were delays that got the best of them, and of course, an unrelenting force of opposition. And I'll tell you where we are now. We are in an absolutely different place than we were in early 2017. This Trump administration, this Trump 2.0 reboot, is one of the most spectacular political forces, and it has left the opposition decimated. They have been reduced to engaging in terrorist tactics. That is how desperate they've become. And Musk and Trump and everybody on our team will continue to win as long as we keep our chin up and stay focused on the prize, which is to make America great again. It's not just a slogan. And everything that Doge is doing will contribute to that effort. So when we come back, some news about the Department of Education, updates there. And then, of course, the lawfare is continuing, but it's all part of this. It's all part of this just absolutely futile effort that the Democrats are in the last throes of resistance to, I think, an unstoppable force that is this administration. So again, very optimistic here, and we'll go through it today here on the program. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.
I'm the best.
Personal injury law has been the same for a long time.
The best.
Big egos, greed, and sleazy schemes. We've had enough. Welcome to Sam and Ash, the new standard for personal injury law, where things are done the right way, because you deserve a team that delivers real support and results. When you have both, your whole world can change. Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right.
Seeing here that Conor McGregor has announced his candidacy for president of Ireland, and so the counter-revolution in the world continues. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT, Nevada's favorite recovering Californian, here safely a few miles away from the Stop Oligarchy rally led by AOC and Bernard Sanders. Bernie's looking old. And I suspect, by the way, that this little shindig that they're going on in part has to do with the fact that a George Soros-backed group has begun pushing Chuck Schumer to retire. Have you seen this? There's buzz, and it's not organic because nothing happens organically in the Democratic Party. There is this story being pushed, or this narrative being pushed, that it's time for Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who has been around since the Big Bang, okay? Like from the dawn of time, one of those heavy narrator voices. Anyway, he's been his entire life in government. I mean, this guy, just absolute, artifact, right? But the Dems don't see it they don't see him being a government insider as a problem. They see him being perhaps, he folded on the CR bill, and the radical Democrats wanted the Senate majority or minority leader here, the Senate Democrats, to hold firm and to shut the government down. I'm convinced of it. So Indivisible, which is an activist organization, got $7.6 million from Soros's Open Society Foundations, and they're calling for Schumer to step down. They want to print out happy retirement cards for him and send him packing. And this is why Schumer is increasingly sounding more and more radical out there. So this was Tuesday on The View. Schumer, I'm not going to play this one. Well, he did an appearance on The View, okay? And he just was, he went full communist. But it got even worse when on Wednesday, yesterday, PBS NewsHour with Jeff Bennett, Schumer basically admitted that they're sending DNC activists to GOP districts. He said, "Oh yeah, it's all a ploy." Listen to this.
We are mobilizing in New York. We have people going to the Republican districts and going after these Republicans who are voting for this and forcing them to either change their vote or face the consequences. This is a long, relentless fight that we fight every day, and I am confident that we will bring Trump's popularity, numbers, and strength down if we keep at it and keep at it and keep at it.
And then he doesn't stop there. He goes, look, it's these judges are going to help. They're the judges, the progressive judges who are not ruling based on the Constitution or not ruling based on law, but are ruling based on politics, are the Democrats' last great hope.
There are those who believe that we are in real time living through an assault on the constitutional order. Do you believe that we are in a constitutional crisis right now?
Yes, our democracy is at risk because Donald Trump shows that he wishes to violate the laws in many, many different ways. The good news here is we did put 235 judges, progressive judges not under the control of Trump last year on the bench, and they are ruling against Trump time after time after time. And we hope that the appellate courts, when it gets up there in the Supreme Court, will uphold those rulings. They restored the money to NIH. They required that 8,000 federal employees have to come back. We're in over 100 lawsuits against them, and we are having a good deal of success. It's only at the lower court level right now.
It's all a fraud, all of it. The Democrats have stacked the deck with a bunch of leftist activist judges that they somehow pushed through. Shame on every single Republican senator who went along to rubber stamp these appointments. Okay? These 200 plus raving lunatics are working in conjunction with each other and with the Democratic Party and with all the NGOs to stop Trump's agenda that a majority of the country voted for and supports. And the party that has lectured us for the last 4 years about democracy and how democracy is sacrosanct and democracy is important and democracy should never be interfered with, the will of the people, all that jazz, are now gloating, I would say, gloating that they're doing this. And the reason Schumer is being so unusually transparent about this is because he's got fellow Democratic organizations pouring millions into forcing him into retirement. And so he is out there going full AOC, just word vomiting all this stuff out in order to persuade the progressive ranks of the party that he's still got it. At the exact moment, and this is, if you don't get anything else from the show but this very moment, the reason this is so important is at the exact moment that the Democratic Party ought to be pivoting toward a more reasonable, positive message. Here's what we will do. Here is our vision for America. Here is our plan. Chuck Schumer, the leader of the party, essentially, because he's the highest ranking elected Democrat at the federal level, is being forced to cater to the most radical elements within his party. A party that has 27% approval rating nationally. It is the worst possible thing to do politically. And in fact, if I didn't know any better, I'd almost think that George Soros is in cahoots with Republicans trying to kneecap the Democrats at their most vulnerable moment. But this isn't how they operate. They actually think this stuff is good. And when it comes to Soros, it's a longer conversation about his ultimate aims, his agenda. Bringing America to her knees is part of their plan. But I would say it's going to backfire here because the more insane the Democrats get, the less support they will have going into the midterms, which we have to begin thinking about. I mean, if this keeps up, it will be an absolute Democrat bloodbath. And I know I'm going to get to the Department of Education here, which didn't get canceled because it was put in place by Congress. And they don't have the votes to get rid of it completely, but they might after the midterms if George Soros keeps pushing this crap. My gosh. Sam Mirejovsky, be right back after this. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right Show, your place for common sense conservatism, Monday through Friday, 1 to 3 p.m., here on News Talk 840 KXNT. I have been moved to a secure location, undisclosed secure location here, as we've been infiltrated. All the commies are up in North Las Vegas, which is a little too close to the office, to be perfectly blunt. They're doing the Stop the Oligarchy rally. Robbie, do you see any updates? This thing is not spinning off a lot of media. I mean, I saw Channel 3 had Kristen had a thing from, for some video of it. People appeared to be there, but not like a thick crowd, Supposedly started at 1. Gates opened at 12:30. You imagine this is a weekday. So people had to take a break from burning Teslas and collecting welfare. It's a rough schedule. Anyway, so here we go. We'll see what happens, Robbie. My gosh, wild stuff. The whole message is off. So let me talk about the Department of Education real fast. Trump, the idea was he was going to shut down the Department of Education. He opted to do something else that I think is smart and reasonable. Given that the Department of Education was created by Congress, okay, in 1979, it's, you're going to need congressional approval to shut it down. Trump has acknowledged that they just don't have the votes in Congress to do it that way. So instead, he's gutting the agency and he's reducing it down to basically just student loans and civil rights violations. Okay, those are going to be these core components, remaining components of the Department of Ed. And, they're not going to get into curriculum. They're not going to get into dictating, things to different school districts, different states. They're really basically going to limit themselves to upper education and civil rights. And I think this is fantastic. Because, of course, gosh forbid if there's a new Democrat administration in 4 years. It's going to be harder to rebuild this, right? So in the ensuing, let's say 3 years and change, a lot can be stripped. This is going to happen all pretty quickly if it hasn't happened already. Now, courts will get in the way. And I think I saw yet another injunction here put in place against, I see this, a judge. Yeah, this female Obama federal judge decided that Doge doesn't have access to Social Security. This is just absolutely insane. To dictate to the President of the United States that he does not have authority over matters within his, within the executive branch of government. It's wild. And that's what you have to, when you talk to people about this, and they say, well, but Trump is acting unconstitutionally. You have to say two things. Number one, it is clear from the Constitution and from our nation's founding that we have a very strong presidency. Congress spends money and the president executes. It's why it's called the executive branch, right? We have a very strong presidency by design because our founders feared a weakened United States. Remember the original attempt in our country to band together, colonies got together in the first go around, and the first system of government was very decentralized. where the power rested almost entirely within the original states. And that was not very effective, and it fell apart. And it was also, the country was very, at that point, susceptible to invasion. And our founders, in drafting the Constitution and forming a stronger central government and a stronger presidency, recognized this. It was a reaction to that. So very important. We have a strong presidency by intent and by design. Now, the other part of this is, then second part is, the judges that push this stuff will simply take power away from the judiciary. Because again, the judiciary, the way it has been set up constitutionally, is a paper tiger. The only enforcement mechanism that they have is to write no on a piece of paper. That's it. I don't know how else to explain this to you. What can a court do? I know what you're thinking. You're saying, well, it could jail you, it could fine you. I understand that, right? But ultimately, who enforces court action? Let's take Trump out of this. Let's go to the state level. I'm an attorney. I sue somebody on behalf of a client. I have a drunk driver who hits my client, and my client is now a paraplegic. Tragic, and it happens all the time, unfortunately. So by the way, there's insurance. The insurance company is jerking us around, so they don't want to pay what's fair, and so we have to take everybody to court. Now, I go to court, state court, right here in Las Vegas, let's say, and I say, all right, we put on our case, we win, jury gives us an award, whatever it is, let's say, $15 million. Okay, I'm just round number. Okay. Now I take that, and what can I do with it? It's a piece of paper from the court, right? That's what it is. And the only enforcement mechanism ultimately is through action that occurs outside of the court, right? I can compel, the court can ask that certain payments be compelled. I mean, the insurance company pays it, right? It doesn't, but if it's against an individual that refuses to pay, wages are garnished, but there are agencies other than the court that make that happen. And those agencies are all executive agencies, right? They are functions of the county government or the state government that record those judgments. And we call perfecting a judgment. You put it out there, whatever the total is that my client is owed, and it gets recorded, and then it gets enforced. But the judge doesn't go out and carry a baton and enforces it. He just signs a piece of paper. And if the rest of the state government decided, for whatever reason, that this particular judge was nuts and that they were going to not do anything, then I'd be standing there with my client going, how are we going to get this paid and enforced? And there'd be no way to do it. And I know I'm driving this point home as best as I can. If I was Chief Justice John Roberts, the number one thing that I would be concerned with is the minute that Trump, and it started, Roberts is a fool because it started with Biden. Biden, when the student loan forgiveness scheme was unconstitutional, according to the Supreme Court, they said no. Okay, so what did Biden do? Biden took and I forget the exact numbers, but let's say it was $100 billion at a time, or $500 billion of debt relief, of student loan relief, and he just chopped it up into smaller pieces. So, it's like your mom telling you don't take big bites. You're like, okay, well, I'll eat the same amount of food, but I'll just cut it into 4 pieces. And that's what he did. It didn't, come on, you don't have to be a a legal eagle to go, well, it's the same amount of money just spread out over 6 months. Like it's still violative of the original order. And what did John Roberts do? Do you think he pitched a fit? Did he hold a press conference? Did he write a press release admonishing the president of the United States? He did no such thing. They let it go. It's the worst possible thing at that point to happen to the Supreme Court, because they had no enforcement mechanism. They rely on the president, because the president, of course, controls all federal police. So federal courts, the only enforcement mechanism are federal agencies and federal police, both of which are controlled by the president. And here is some people, and I was not knocking all the super bright constitutional law people that comment on this, but they're overcomplicating it and they're getting stuck in the weeds. But think of it this way. If the judge really doesn't have any power, okay, and they issue this stupid unconstitutional edict, okay, who's the only person in the government that can resist, really truly, work against Trump in following that order? I would argue it's the 2 million unelected bureaucrats that DOJ is trying to fire. So the single most important thing, this is why they're fighting it so hard. The one thing that the Democrats were counting on this whole time wasn't even the judges. They were counting on that they would still have all their people in the agencies. They would have all their people in the Department of not education, USAID, for example. And there's those people that would get the unconstitutional, totally nonsense order from the judge, and they would go, well, here we go. We got a piece of paper, and we're going to follow this. And it gives them the legal cover to work against the president. These judges, essentially, are not directing Trump. They are directing the unelected minions of the deep swamp. And the only thing Trump needs to do, this is what I would do. I don't care. I would risk it all on saying, I'm not paying attention to these orders. I'm going to lock these people out of their buildings. And I'm going to sell the buildings so the people don't even have anywhere to go. I'm going to take their laptops. I'm going to not pay them. I'm going to let these people sue the federal government, sue the Trump administration for taking their jobs. Let that drag on for you. But basically, lock these people out of their ability to do anything, to act with any authority. Make it a wrongful termination claim, for all I care. By the time it's adjudicated and settled, the job they had hasn't existed for 2 years. That's the play. And if I am reading the tea leaves correctly, and I think I am, that is precisely what Trump is doing. See? And now you understand what's actually going on. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Friends, I am just... this is hilarious. Somebody just sent me from the firm, here at Sam & Ash Injury Law, which is my law firm. That's my day job. And my escape from that, 1 to 3 p.m., of course, is this program, The What's Right Show. So somebody wrote a Google review for us, apparently. Some person, some idiot, probably a competitor. But I just want, this is hilarious. I don't know. Do you guys have, probably some of you have businesses and you get crazy Google reviews, Yelp reviews, and people are nuts. Just once, easy car wreck cases with insurance companies involved. Couldn't show a docket number of any tough cases involving big box stores, casinos, etc. Right-wingers like him have worked to limit plaintiffs' ability to recover. I guess they mean me. Whether workers' comp or PI, took no position on Uber's attempt to limit legal fees. This person knows a lot, except for they've never listened to the show because they would have known I've talked about this. And I'm very opposed to it. A marketer. Attorneys should not be allowed to advertise. Okay. You know, who wants to tell him that and I can't, confidential who it was against, major casino on the Strip. You know, I don't brag about this. 35 million last year we had. Long case, worked on it a couple years, but it great outcome for our client. We take on some very tough cases, and for the record, you know, bad faith litigation. This is where. Do you know what this is? And I was thinking about this the other day. I'll explain in a moment. You know the LA fires. So the fires happened in Los Angeles. All of a sudden, everybody is waking up to the reality that insurance companies suck. I saw Joel Pollack. Conservatives are waking up to it. Like I saw Joel Pollack, who of course lives in the Palisades, is reporting on this, and he's a friend. He's a good guy, and he's like, you know, look, State Farm is the worst insurance company. He writes this tweet, right? State Farm is the worst insurance company. Look at what they're doing at the fire victims, and my response to it on X, on Twitter was, yeah, I mean, I've always known this. I talk about this on the program. It's not even that the insurance companies are bad. It's that they are self-interested. They will act in their self-interest. And one of the things when I practiced and was living full-time in California, we fought for something called third-party bad faith. And we worked on this on a number of cases where we basically had to show to the courts that insurance companies were completely acting in their interest and not protecting their insured. Somebody would, for example, get into a car accident, right? You got into a car, you had insurance, you had State Farm or Geico. And the person you hit ended up having a huge case, $1 million case. And you have, 15, 30 or 25, 50 low policy limits. And then that person, right, comes to you, their attorneys come to your insurance company and go, hey, just pay us the limit and we'll walk away. And your insurance company goes, no, we want this, that, and the other. And then the lawsuit gets filed. And in the end, what happens? Their attorney, rightly gets, $1 million. That's what the case is worth. And you're stuck holding the bag on the balance of whatever your insurance, has, which is 15 grand, let's say, or 25 grand. And the rest. So what happens to the average person? I mean, even me, God, somebody comes up to me and goes, hey, here, you owe me $975,000. So what we did, it's actually got insurance companies to be more fair with people because it really changed the game, is me together with an attorney named Mark Algori in California, who's a phenomenal litigator. We went and we'd go to the defendant, and we'd say to the defendant, hey, this isn't your fault. Really, the insurance company screwed you over. Your insurance company should have paid this 3 years ago, and they didn't. Work with us, and we will get this money from them. So we would actually take on, or have a fellow attorney take on the case of this, defendant who now becomes, part of the case. And together we sue the insurance company in a second, cause of action. And because you're suing over their claims practices now through discovery, we would get their claims manuals. We'd get their claims manuals, and the claims manuals would show that these are companies. This is my answer to what's going on in the LA fires, what happens in these hurricanes, these storms, when people complain about insurance. I've read their procedures. It is designed to delay any kind of payments, to deny coverage, and then when things hit the fan, to defend in hopes that you give up. And that's why, my answer to this person, obviously, I don't know who they're writing about. It's not me. They're just maybe a competitor and trying to drive down our ratings. But, you need clever lawyers if you're gonna fight. And so that's, I don't get into a lot of details here about Sam and Ash injury law. I do, of course, it allows me to do the show. So it's a sponsor of our program. But I just wanted to share that with you here because you do want a clever lawyer. You don't want just an ambulance chaser crash clown like a lot of these firms are. But Sam and Ash injury law, quality place. So I think I'll be writing my own response to this review. Okay, when we come back, Judge Boasberg, boy, I tell you, this lawfare is ramping up to be one of the biggest political stories of our lifetime. I'm not exaggerating. You're going to see a remake of the Republic based on this upcoming showdown between Judge Boasberg and Trump. Boasberg is the one who ordered the El Salvadorian, the Venezuelan gang members to come back to the U.S. mid-flight. All right, Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. This hour of the program brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, because you deserve what's right. Greetings and welcome to the What's Right show, brought to you by Sam and Ash Injury Law, 702-820-1234, because you deserve what's right. My email, sam@what'srightshow.com, and my Twitter X handle @what'srightsam. All right, so there's a major constitutional crisis looming. I've been telling you about this, and I just saw today, in fact, 30 minutes ago, this popped up, signed order from James Boasberg. This is the judge, the federal judge that ordered that the ICE planes filled with Venezuelan gangbangers return midair, mid-flight, turn around and return to the U.S. So this guy is so high on himself, unbelievable. This federal judge thinks that his restraining order, his TRO, wasn't ignored, and so now he is basically ordering a hearing on this. And I think, he's basically threatening to put government the administration attorneys into custody. Okay. I don't think he can. Again, the federal prisons are operated by the president of the United States. Trump's not going to put up with this. Has no teeth. The marshals who would put anybody into custody fall under the executive branch of government, again, under the presidency. And what's really at issue here, these gangbangers have no legal right to be here and, would have been deported. And not even that, the argument that Team Trump is making, and it's a reasonable argument, is that under this Alien Enemies Act, this is a foreign incursion. And there is evidence, actually, that the government of Venezuela deliberately sent these people to the U.S. to cause mayhem. So now Monday, there's oral arguments set on this case, all right? And there's so many, filings going back and forth. I just want to, it's getting lost, I think, in all the shuffle of all of the news that is going on. But what's this judge going to do? This is why he's so pissed. He can't bring these gangbangers back because Trump brilliantly sent them off into custody in El Salvador. They're in a sovereign country. That this judge, I think maybe this federal judge thinks that he can compel El Salvador to return these illegal, immigrant gangbangers into the U.S., but I don't think that's going to fly. So these federal judges, they have just gotten so big on their authority. And Boasberg, I explained this before, this is the judge that had This is the judge that had, well, first of all, how many of the of the J6 cases did he have? He had like 30 or 40 of them, maybe even more. And then his fingerprints were all over the corrupt FISA warrants that just, well, I'm just telling you, like this, he had some of the, well, yeah, right. He had actually an FBI agent that lied to him, got convicted of lying. And then this guy then later sentenced him to a slap on the wrist and no jail time. I mean, it's astounding. So okay, I'm pointing some stuff out. So here's the rub. It's just not going to happen. And meanwhile, right, you have the immigration issue. On the subject of immigration, right, because one of the major things that I think the lawfare right now is targeting Trump's immigration efforts and DOJ efforts. Those are the top two. And when it comes to, obviously DOJ, they're just wherever they can stopping people from getting fired. They're stopping, they're reinstating payments that are trying to, the DOJ is trying to cancel. And on the immigration front, they want to do whatever they possibly can to have illegals remain in the U.S. So it's just absolutely wild stuff. And fascinating to me. And I honestly, I'm saying this, and maybe it's because I'm an attorney and I'm fascinated about the legal aspect of this. But it's not even that. It's that for the last 4 years, the District of Columbia, the federal courts in Columbia, waged war on MAGA Republicans. They shredded the Constitution. Remember, these are the judges. Judge Boasberg allowed Biden's federal prosecutors to use a federal law to go after J6 protesters that was intended for document destruction that came from the Enron era. And it was basically, otherwise it would just been a trespass, in a protest. That's it. But they used this code section that didn't apply at all, that later the Supreme Court, including liberal justices, threw out. I think Ketanji Brown Jackson voted with the conservatives on this one. That's how egregious the District of Columbia is, the federal court circuit. And I think because I have followed their abuses there closely and been so incensed by it, it's radicalized me, honestly. Now watching him, feebly try to fight against Trump, I have no sympathy for these judges whatsoever. I have no sympathy. And I'm not persuaded at all by the left now making arguments, but the Constitution, you didn't care about the Constitution one bit when you're out there shredding grandmas for participating in a walk through the Capitol on January 6th. Didn't care about the Constitution one bit because democracy was at stake, remember? And these same people who lectured us about democracy while shredding the Constitution now want, after we the people have spoken and rejected their lunacy and voted against them and electing Trump, now want to lecture us about what is constitutional and what isn't. They now turn around and push, their absolute nonsense on us with, by the way, here democracy produced a result that slapped them upside the head. But it's not about democracy. It's about their power. And that's how you know that these judges are radicals. Because they're not interested in the rule of law. The rule of law here conflicts with their ideas of the country. So therefore, they find ways of going around the voters. And these judges are usurping the president of the United States, Donald J. Trump, who was elected by the people. And at a time when the courts are, and by the way, destroying their credibility, and the Democrats are running around holding rallies to stop the oligarchy and supporting the killing of CEOs and burning of Teslas and screaming at the top of their lungs in ridiculous TikTok videos, we Republicans have a coherent and necessary plan for this country that we're executing on. I'm going to take a quick break. And I got some great stuff on Doge, by the way. Tremendous support for everything that's happening. People want the deportations. People want the border closed. People want our government shrunk. These are popular things. But the Democratic Party seems to be intent on resisting the will of the people. Well, we'll show them, I think. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. The What's Right show will be back in a moment.
The Sam and Ash team, they wanted me to have the best care. They had my interests at heart. I have an enormous amount of gratitude. I cannot say enough thank you.
One thing to be aware of when it comes to Doge, see the Republicans, Trump team moving very quickly on Doge. The Democrats want it to go more slowly. I'll explain why. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends, and welcome to the What's Right show. The top criticism you hear from so-called moderates is that I want them to cut waste and fraud. I just want them to do it with a scalpel, not a chainsaw. And the Dems have ceded this argument, by the way, because it sounds reasonable, right? But look at the kind of waste that we are dealing with. You can't take a measured approach. It'll never get done. And I think that's what it is. I think that Democrats know this. And so if the Republicans, if the Trump team were to go in and surgically, okay, here, we're going to cut, they never get around to cutting anything of real substance. This is the real truth. Daily Wire, by the way, an incredible piece yesterday by Luke Rosiak talking about one of the agencies that Doge eliminated. This agency, I had never even heard of it, the Federal Mediation and Conciliation Service. No idea, right? But this agency, if you look at what they were doing, it's astounding. This agency occupied 9 stories of prime office space in downtown Washington, D.C. It doesn't say how much the office space would be. It's just, think millions of dollars. It's just astounding, top Class A office space. There were only 60 employees in the building. People had private bathrooms with showers in their offices. There are stories. People are on the record saying, I couldn't reach my manager because she was taking a shower during the workday. People were buying champagne. People were using for their offices. People were literally took the normally established limits, different controls that are put on corporate credit cards, and took them off and used the company credit cards to this agency to buy lavish vacations for themselves, to buy gifts, to pay personal expenses. One guy leased a BMW. These were government employees. The left would want us to take a scalpel to this. Now, the total of 230 employees, most of them working from home, right, exists apparently to serve as a voluntary mediator between unions and business. Oh, nice. It's an independent agency. Aha. So the director only sort of reports to the president and has actually, in practice, no oversight at all. One employee told the writer of the story, quote, let me give you the honest truth. A lot of FMCS employees don't do a hell of a lot, including myself. Personally, the reason that I've stayed is that I just don't feel like working that hard. Plus, the location on K Street is great. Plus, we have all these oversized offices with windows. Plus, management doesn't seem to care if we stay out at lunch a long time. Can you blame me? And the answer is no, I can't, right? Can you? Sounds like a great gig. Top official George Cohen used a rec and reception fund to order champagne and $200 coasters for his office. He used the money, federal money, your tax dollars, my tax dollars, to purchase artwork that was painted by his wife to decorate his office. They commissioned paintings of top employees. One employee said, quote, "It's like they were reigning kings or something. I've never seen anything like it before." FMCS employees unblocked their government credit cards to turn off typical abuse protections and then used them apparently to fund personal expenses. One employee leased a BMW. The IT director, James Donnan, billed the government for his wife's cell phone, cable TV at both his home and vacation home, and even his subscription to USA Today. These people belong in jail. Meanwhile, judges like James Boasberg are arguing that they should keep their jobs. And so-called moderate idiots out there who have no idea what way is up are saying, "Oh, Elon Musk should take a scalpel. Take a scalpel." We should be careful about what cuts we make. We don't want to cut any muscle. Everybody wants to cut the fat, but not the muscle. Right? You've heard all these arguments. When one employee named Charles Burton retired from FMCS, he incorporated an LLC, which another FMCS employee paid $85,000 to using his purchase card, listing it as a call center service. And the company didn't have a website or a working phone number. They flat out stole money, $85,000 from the government. This is unbelievable. They had an in-house gym for employees, purchased a $1,000 TV for the gym, a $3,800 ice maker, and a $560 stereo. And this is for the maybe 60 employees that were coming into the office, a total of less than 300 well-paid employees. The salaries there as high as $200,000 a year, unbelievable. On top of all of these perks. This is a scandal, right? And this is why the top government officials in our country now are saying, yeah, everything that's going on with Doge needs to happen. Scott Bessent said this on a podcast. He was sitting down talking to Chamath Palihapitiya, and he said this.
With Doge, that I am completely aligned with what Elon's doing. And everyone says, well, do you have to do it so fast? Do you have to do it? Like I said, I've only been in this business for 7 weeks. I've only been in DC for 8 weeks. But the thing I can tell you is if you don't move fast, the vested interest will weigh you down.
Totally.
Like the quicksand will come up, or
the claws get
the claw. Yeah, everybody's got lobbyists. Everybody's got. Yeah. I mean, think about it. Within a 10-mile radius of here, 25% of the GDP of the U.S. pulsates through here.
Pulsates
every day.
Yeah,
and everybody wants to just skim a little. I said to Elon, we were in a meeting, and I said, people are mad at you because you're moving their cheese. And he goes, it's not their cheese, it's the American people's cheese.
100%. Right. Every dollar spent goes into someone's pocket, and that person's going to fight tooth and nail to get that dollar to keep flowing into their pocket. And it's a very, there is no winning in Elon's role. There's every single time he takes action, there are people that are going to come after him, that are going to come after the administration. There's no and obviously gets recast, reclassified in the media as being something different. But there's nothing but downside as you make these changes to individual organizations that participate. And then it takes a while for the flow of that money to find its way, or those individuals to find their way back into the productive private economy. That's where I think there's a big gap and a big challenge in the perception of the actions that are going on with the changes right now, is everyone sees the cuts, but they don't see the benefits. And that's 9 months, 12 months, 15 months down the road. And that's a really hard thing to reconcile for most.
There it is. This is exactly right. We're only 8 weeks in, folks. Imagine what happens when all this is cut. The money, the flow of money ends, the spending stops, the deficit shrinks, our economy improves, the stock market will eventually go up wildly. Everybody benefits from this, but of course, except for those that have these ingrained interests in the flow of funny money to continue. Those people, and by the way, those people have a lot of political power and are using it to direct all sorts of negative energy at Americans just in order so they could save, as they put it here, their cheese. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840. Be right back in just a moment. Hi, welcome back. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT. Greetings, friends. Welcome to the program. So I'm sharing that crazy story about one particular agency that DOJ is shutting down that acted, I guess, just as a voluntary mediation group, mediation, conflict between employers and unions. And by the way, there are private mediation companies that you can use. You can just pay a flat fee for the day of, $1,000, depending, maybe more, $20,000 if it's a really, high-end mediator for the day, and have services like that provided without paying for this insane overhead. 9 stories of prime office space in DC. People charging, BMW car payments onto government credit cards. Private bathrooms built out in the office space, including showers, employees taking showers during the workday. Just wild stuff. And Americans on both sides of the aisle ought to be repulsed by this. They ought to celebrate Elon Musk finding this as a hero. Instead, elected representatives like Jasmine Crockett, Democrat from Texas, wants Elon taken down. And, she says, by the way, I want it to happen by March 29th. It's my birthday. This is her last night. This woman is just absolutely repulsive.
Make sure that I keep it short, but I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
Yay. Happy birthday to you. This is, by the way, the congresswoman that is probably the least classy, lowest amount of decorum of any member of Congress, and that's, it's a low bar. She just absolutely sucks, and she's dumb as a box of rocks. But anyway, she wants Elon Musk taken down for birthday. This was part of a Tesla takedown mass call. Again, the Democrats aren't saying what they're for. They don't have a plan. They're not, they don't have a set of values. They're just telling us what they're going to destroy. John Cusack, the actor that used to be tolerable to watch and has since become an absolute raving left-wing lunatic, paints Elon Musk as a Nazi in the same call.
Musk is kind of this arch villain of late-stage capitalism, and he seems like this clown and this buffoon. But like Alex said, this is a man who made a Sieg Heil Nazi salute not only in public, but at a presidential victory party. It's good to remember that these are unprecedented times of mass criminality going on in the United States right now. And that, like Trump, Musk is a pathological liar. He's a criminal. He's a sociopath and a ghoul. And I mean those terms very precisely, because who else would use his own child as a sympathy prop while literally taking starving aid away from people all over the world?
What?
He's literally killing people. People are going to die because of this madness. He's a man who threw 80,000 people from the VA out of work indiscriminately. And as far as the plunder, I would urge everybody to really follow Bernie Sanders' Fighting Oligarchy tour and listen to what he has to say.
To Vegas.
Because the list of abuses is too big to even tackle within 5 or 10 minutes.
You know, imagine being this demented and miserable. Is that a do-rag? Robbie, what the hell is he wearing? Did he get adopted into Ilhan Omar's clan from Somalia? What is that? He looks like a ninja. Let me attack this substantively, right? USAID is not US aid. This isn't, we're doing all sorts of good things around the world. This is a slush fund that Democrats and the left and the deep state has used to go and actually do quite a bit of harm around the world. Now, what I will look, again, I'm a reasonable person here, and I understand the counterpoint that in all of the cuts, there probably are some good things that got cut. And those good things can always be brought back. But if I'm going to pick between carefully, slowly, methodically taking the next 20 years, and we don't have time for that. Like, none of these people acknowledge the economic reality of any of this. Okay, let's even just assume for a minute that firing anybody is bad. What do these people do, right? That's probably why Hollywood these actors are always going bankrupt, because they're morons with money. You know, they're like, oh, but spending it on that is a good thing. I got to live in this house, and I need that, and I need, there's all this good stuff that we need, sure. And if we were operating in the black, meaning taking in more money than we spend, I mean, hell, as long as people aren't grousing about the taxes they're getting charged, I guess we're fine. But that's not what's going on. We're operating at an ever-increasing deficit, contributing to a crushing national debt. So it's not realistic to make arguments. And this is my pushback, even if I'm not making fun of what he's saying, and it is absolutely asinine on so many levels, but just practically, even if he is absolutely right that every person that Elon Musk threw out, that it was heartless and that person was essential, and that the aid that was going from USAID was going to saving lives of poor little kids around the world. So what? We can't afford it. Are you going to prioritize a child in Africa over a Social Security recipient in the U.S.? That's an honest question. If you can only pay for one, hell, you barely pay for one of them at this point. Which one do you choose? I think now we're getting to what America first means, right? Can't run around the world being the world cop. Can't run around being the savior of Africa. If you want to save Africa, let Bono do it, right? Or Bono, whatever his name is. U2. Live Aid. Okay, have the billionaires, have George Soros donate money to saving, to solving AIDS in Africa. We can be the leader as Americans. John Cusack made a lot of money as an actor, no? I'd like to see his charitable contributions. What does he give money to personally? Here he is wanting to literally bankrupt America just so he can feel good or just have a cause. It's nuts. These people are absolutely bananas. It's indefensible. And again, the villain in all of this is Elon Musk. Yesterday on The Daily Show, the audience cheered for Tesla terrorism. Now, the host, Jordan Klepper, you can see he kind of set this up. Bear in mind the types of people that have time during the day, in the middle of the day, on a weekday, to attend a lengthy studio taping of a TV show, right? That's who's in the audience.
They're taking to the streets or the parking lots.
Tonight, the FBI and ATF now investigating multiple cases of possible arson targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple...
Wait, stop. That is literally tape of Teslas burning here in Las Vegas. That's unacceptable. These Americans are cheering a terrorist attack in our city. F these people.
Cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month, shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on fire in Seattle.
Wow, you guys like petty acts of domestic terrorism, huh?
Hardly petty acts of domestic terrorism. Serious stuff. On the plus side, we finally have Democrats interested in the Second Amendment and the right to bear arms, because apparently they're cheering people using high-powered weapons. Just as the show began today, there's been some news, and let me see this as a, where do I have this story here? Apparently, Pam Bondi has announced some very serious charges. So I've got this, the story here. Attorney General announces severe charges over Tesla attacks. Number of folks are going to be charged apparently with, and are facing 20-year jail terms. The guy that they caught in Salem, Oregon, was throwing Molotov cocktails while armed with a suppressed AR-15. This is what I was saying about Democrats finally getting on board with the Second Amendment. Normally, an assault weapon that has a silencer on it would be a major Democrat no-no. Justice Department said that each person could face up to 20 years in prison. Lansky, 41, was arrested for allegedly targeting a Salem dealership twice with attacks and was charged in federal court with illegally possessing an unregistered device. Good. Throw the book at them. And by the way, if they're a foreign national engaging in this kind of terrorism, send them straight to Guantanamo Bay. These are enemy combatants. I don't know what to... the president has to go absolute... And they are, it looks like it, 20-year jail terms, not insignificant. So this has to get done. Of course, look at the people that are cheering. What if they end up on the jury? This is absolutely despicable. These are the same people that got excited when Mangione, what did he do? Shot in cold blood in back of his head a CEO of a health insurance company. And now he's an absolute hero. That is the state of the left in America today. Heartbreaking. All right, the What's Right show is brought to you by Sam & Ash Injury Law. Quick break. We'll be back in a moment. So I really think, folks, that this domestic terrorism unleashed on Tesla, this hatred now focused at Elon Musk, is going to be one of the defining stories of our time. Combined, of course, with the intrigue going on in the courts, the lawfare that has now shifted from targeting Trump personally as a criminal defendant to targeting his administration, slowing down his democratically elected agenda. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840 KXNT. Friends, welcome to the program. I'm always so happy to be here. Thursday, we're almost there. I think is today, Robbie, the beginning of spring? It's either today or tomorrow. It doesn't feel very springy just yet. I still feel a little chilly, but this weekend I'm looking at the temperatures, and it is, I think, going to be quite nice in Las Vegas. 70s, possibly even 80s. I love that. So, it is today. Yeah, okay. Puxatawny Phil got back to us, and spring is beginning now. Excellent, good. Well, there it is. You've gotten the memo. I think this is why AOC and Bernie Sanders crawled out today to kick off spring, and they are, of course, at a park not too far from my office. Well, I'm downtown, but, North Las Vegas, again, not that far. And they're holding their Stop the Oligarchy rally. So all these foaming at the mouth crazy people who think that Elon Musk is a source of their problems, who have allowed themselves to get wound up like this, are gathering together for a self-help session. It's crazy. I have a prediction about all of this. Trump will be successful. Elon Musk will emerge from this more successful than ever. They are doing something that is, unpopular. They're not doing anything here, right? When I'm looking at the Trump administration, that is at odds with the will of the people. Who you are seeing from and hearing from is a narrow majority of the American public. The people out there cheering the destruction of property, the people out there screaming into their phones, recording videos of themselves having absolute meltdowns. These are not a majority of Americans. I remember when I first started out as a radio host, and my story of getting into radio is completely accidental. I always loved radio, enjoyed it as a medium, and so I went on. I had an opportunity at KABC in LA to do 1 hour over the weekend, and then it turned into 2, and then they had an hour in the evening open up, and then that turned into 2. So then eventually I had kind of late drive time in LA, and it was a great experience. But right around that time, one of the issues that was really starting to pop up were these safe spaces on college campuses and trigger warnings, right? So, and it was fascinating to me because, of course, at this point I'd been out of undergrad for a while, and I never really experienced anything like it, when I went to school. So I was perplexed because, of course, a lot of history is violent. A lot of history is sad, is traumatic. If you read about World War II and setting aside even the Holocaust, but just, the battles, if you look at what happened, it's horrifying. History is filled with violence, and you have to learn it in order to appreciate it, in order for it the bad stuff to not repeat itself. And around the year 2000, but really it was later, it was, this was like, 2010 in earnest. It started this idea that we had to protect young people from anything bad, any trauma, any delicate, we had to protect their little delicate beings, coddle them. And not just kids in elementary school, but actual young adults in premier institutions like Columbia and Harvard and UCLA and Stanford. You know, the people that first came into contact with this, right? The first generation from the early 2000s. You know, they're in their mid 40s now. The people that were in the thick of it, they're in their mid to early 30s. I'm only throwing this out there when you look at, these are people that have been brought up in truly in an insane and unprecedented environment. They weren't just taught by liberals. I mean, I was taught by liberals in college. Every one of my professors, save for maybe one, was a raving lunatic leftist. Later, it was a little bit different when I went to Chapman for law school and finished my undergrad at Chapman later. But it just was, I'm telling you, at UCI, oh my gosh, raving lunatics. But it's more than that now. These, crazy, terrorists of the 1970s taught a generation that now is teaching another generation of young people how to really actually lose their minds when it comes to politics and when it comes to the approach on life generally. Can you imagine being so upset about something politically that you would go out and damage somebody else's property? You have to think about what kind of a person that is. And it starts to make sense when you understand, where they were, how they were brought up, and what kind of experiences they had, what kind of schooling they had, who influenced them. By the way, this is why the Department of Education needs to be stripped of all of that. We need to get back to teaching kids, about reality. Okay, enough from me. Tomorrow, I'll be back. See you Friday. Sam Mirejovsky, News Talk 840, KXNT.